Welcome, colleagues, to the 106th meeting of the Subcommittee on International Human Rights and the beginning of our 6th annual Iran Accountability Week.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dubowitz. My question is for you. I, like all my colleagues around the table, share a real concern about the human rights situation in Iran, but I'm also concerned when the argument is made that regime change ought to be the focus in Iran. We have seen what regime change meant in Iraq in 2003, what it meant for the people of Iraq from a human rights perspective, but also the wider region. I wonder if you could comment on the following. You wrote, along with Rael Mark Garrick for Bloomberg a few years back, this is what you said, and I quote this also in light of the fact that you're counseling the Canadian government to take a stronger approach when it comes to imposing sanctions on Iran. You said as follows: if we are going to pursue tougher international sanctions against Iran, and we should, the goal should be regime change in Iran, not stopping proliferation. In fact, regime change would make the idea of an Iranian bomb far more tolerable. I wonder if you could explain what you mean by that.
Sorry. So when I talk about regime change, I talk about the regime change that Payam was talking about.
Not to interrupt you, but to be clear, you've advocated for regime change in a number of forums. For the Wall Street Journal, Slate,
many times.
Ynet News.
Well, I can give you a whole list.
Okay, well, there's
we
more.
can talk afterwards. There's a whole long list. Of course, because at the end of the day, the only hope for the people of Iran and the only hope for the security of the region and the only hope of mitigating the nuclear and missile threat to our homeland is that there has to be the end of this regime.
It's 2 p.m. I don't mean to interrupt, but do you not see how advocating for regime change and pushing that, I mean, you ignore the view, with all due respect, sir, that regime change would not even arguably, almost certainly, completely destabilize Iran, pose all sorts of terrible human rights consequences for the people of Iran and for the wider region. So in counseling the Canadian government,
no, but sir, I think you're
stronger, just hold on, to impose stronger sanctions on Iran, you're actually advocating, because of your arguments that we've seen, you're advocating that Canada come on board with a view to replacing the regime in Iran, which to me is quite concerning, because if Canada was to go down that path, we would see the entire region destabilized, and I mean, we're focused on human rights here. Human rights would really be undermined. So,
can I try answer?
Of course, go ahead. I'm quite curious.
So I think you have a conception of regime change, understandably so, of sort of 500,000 mechanized U.S. troops invading Iran to take down the regime. I don't support that form of regime change. I oppose the Iraq War, and I would oppose an Iran war of U.S. invasion. I support the change of the regime, as Shirin Ebadi, a Nobel Prize laureate, supports it. I support the change of regime that hundreds of thousands of Iranians who are on the streets over the past couple of months have actually called for. I support a peaceful transformation and a peaceful...
Military strikes at all? Because you've written in favor of military strikes.
If we don't have credible military force, and if we're not actually willing to apply it, then sanctions actually become quite a weak alternative to trying to restore that coercion on a host of different fronts. And so there's the opportunity for Congress and a new administration. Sanctions back on the table, military force back on the table. I think with Mike Pompeo at DCI, we may even see covert action back on the table. But I think this would be useful to push back against the Iranians.